Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Life's Deceit. I'm your host, Jen Simpson. I hope you're having a beautiful morning, afternoon, night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the new listeners, or if you're a new subscriber, welcome and thank you for continuing to support the platform. If you're new here and you have not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave me a comment. I hope that you guys are getting ready and gearing up for the Christmas season, because literally Christmas is around the corner. And I thought about it today. I'm not ready. I have not started anything. I've been so busy with getting prepared with our donations to Jamaica that I have not thought about my own family and what we're going to do. Where are we having Christmas dinner this year? Whose house? How many dinners are we having? Whose house and whose dinner are we going to crash this year? We have not sat down and decided that, but guess what? I procrastinate a lot, but I get things done under pressure. We have another special guest, and I'm excited about him. He has spent over 30 plus years working within the systems designed to protect children and families. He's someone who helps witnesses step into courtrooms with clarity and confidence, without fear, without hesitation, without pondering minds wondering if they're going to do well. But his own story doesn't begin there. It begins in a childhood without a father, a childhood marked by trauma, by silence, by neglect, by confusion. Today, we're speaking with Michael Watson.
Belief in yourself is so important. When you believe in what you're doing, when you believe that you can achieve what you're doing, the chance of you succeeding are, greatly increased. If you don't believe in what you're doing, however, if you don't believe that you can do it, well, any little obstacle, any things that gets in your way will be a reason for you to stop doing it because you don't really believe you can do it.
A qualified social worker, author, public speaker, and a man who's about to share a story he has kept quiet for a very, very long time. Until now, on the Life's Deceit platform, we get to dissect this story and bring it to light and use it to shape somebody else's lives. And I'm excited about this episode. This episode is about truth. Not only the truth we speak under oath, but the truth we uncover in our own homes, in our healing, and within ourselves. Today we'll speak about truths that we try to deny, truths that we cover up with moving in life, our careers, our lifestyles, truths that we were told that we weren't supposed to speak about, truths that's a part of our healing journey, that's a part of us flourishing, that's a part of our purpose. Today, we get to sit with Michael Watson, the honorable man who decided that his experiences and his career and his own traumas and the things that he healed from is a stepping stone, is a pillar for other people. And he chose not only to be just a social worker, but to be an example and to help other people get prepared for court and not to go to court confused and not knowing your rights and what you can and what you cannot do, but to protect yourself and your children. Today we have Michael Watson with us, and I'm excited to have him with us in our presence. And I want you to give him a warm welcome for me and welcome Michael Watson to the platform. So Michael, welcome to the Life's Deceit platform. I hope that you're having a beautiful day today, afternoon, night, wherever you are in the world. As you said, afternoon, you are in the UK. I would like to start by asking you, what do you represent and what do you hope that your purpose will be?
What do I hope my purpose will be? My purpose will be to help an awful lot of people, millions of people, I believe, who need to go to court and learn how to defend themselves. They need to defend themselves when they're in court. People don't realise. When you're out in the street, Janelle, if you're attacked, this is the way I look at it. When you're out in the street and you're attacked, you know what to do. No one likes to be attacked, but you know what to do. Basically, you can run and hide, you can fight back, you can call the police, or you can enlist someone's help. But basically, you
Hmm.
know what to do. When you're attacked in the witness box, and make no mistake, you are being attacked. It's just not physically. What do you do? How do you deal with it? If you're not prepared, you are basically you're a victim because you're not prepared for it.
Right.
Barristers are preparing for you all the time. Barristers are training all the time, so they are prepared for you. They're getting skilled. They're honing their skills. What are we doing? What are you doing as a witness? You don't know. You're going in blind. You
Right.
may go in, might have a little bit of experience, a little bit of preparation, but it's not wholly enough.
Hmm.
So it needs to be. You need to really get an adequate level of of not only experience but training and preparation when you go to court. If you want to get the best result, and I don't know anyone who goes to court not wanting to get the best result.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's really important. And what's the first question? What do I represent?
And what would you say you represent?
I think I represent all the people who go to court and don't know what to do. I think I represent people who have been victims. I was a victim. That's the first time when I went to court, I was a social worker, but in my mind, when I look back at it, I was a victim because I didn't have a clue what was going on. I didn't know how to deal with
Right.
it. I didn't know how to cope with it, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. And it's only because of I don't even, to be honest, I still don't fully 100% know why I went back again and again and again. Except there's a part of me thinking, you know what, that is never going to happen to me again. So I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to me again. But yes, I was a victim at that time. So I represent lots and lots of people. I think millions of people who are victims. I also suspect that lots of people, after they've had their time in court, and when it didn't go well, and often it doesn't go well, I suspect some people, get very depressed and get very ill afterwards,
Yes.
and maybe
And they
take their
shut
life.
down.
Yeah,
Y- This is very true.
yeah,
And for 35 years, you've been working within a system that's designed to protect children and families. But history for you didn't begin in the courtroom. It began as a child without a father,
yes.
with trauma and silence. For our listeners who aren't familiar with you or your work, tell us a little bit about what you do. What's your title and why did you choose to walk in this purpose?
I think going back to being a child, I grew up with three other brothers, and I was the only brother that was traumatized, I think, by my mum and dad splitting up. And I was traumatized because my first attachment was to my dad.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that as a child because I blocked it all out because that's how traumatic it was for me. I only found out, I don't know, several years ago, when my younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me, told me things of when we had to go and see our dad after mum and dad had split up, and I had no memory of it because I blocked it out. So him knowing it, and he was 2 years younger than me, I knew that I blocked it out, and obviously because I was doing the work that I was doing at the time, being a social worker, I realised it was trauma. But I think that trauma, that experience, allowed me or positioned me in a way which made me believe that I had something to offer children, and that's why I think I had an affinity with children and I wanted to work with them. So that was an experience that colored a lot of my life, that experience, because what happens to you as a child has a deep, deep, strong impact on you. Even though, I mean, people even nowadays don't, as I say nowadays, even when they become adults, don't recognize how powerful our childhood often is to us. We think, oh, it's past, but it isn't past unless it's dealt with. And 9 times out of 10 or longer, it isn't dealt with. So yeah, that's what got me into doing social work. When I got into social work, I had another traumatic experience which led me eventually down the path of the court. And because that experience was so traumatic, as I said, I decided somewhere along the line that that was never going to happen to me again. So I went back to court again and again and again. I immersed myself in court proceedings until I got good at it. And then I was able to write a book about it. And then I was able to, from there, I suddenly started thinking, there's a lot of people that don't know anything about court. They don't know anything. They don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to, they are victims because they don't know how to protect themselves. And people in court will just lap that up and make their life a living hell. And so the more I thought about it, I thought people need help with that in this area. Now, most people, they just think they'll go to a solicitor, but
Right.
solicitors or lawyers can't help them in this. They can't help them in that way because they're not experienced in that. They're not experienced in giving evidence. They may know what to say. They're on the other side of that. They might ask people questions, but actually dealing with it, being experiencing, being asked those questions, being in that position, that's something that lawyers aren't. They're not experienced in that because they don't have to do it. People like me have to do it, and I did it and again and again and again because I was a social worker and I was a children's guardian and I was an independent social worker. So I was an expert in the court doing those sorts of things. So that's what made me recognise how important it was, and more I think about it, the more important I realise it is. Every time I think about it.
And you talk about your childhood and your parents separating. What did your childhood look like before your parents separated and after they separated?
I can remember things after they separated. I can't remember much about my life before they separated. I don't know how old I was when my parents separated. All I know is that I have vague or distant memories of my dad. And obviously, I found out
Mhm.
that I spent a lot of time with him when I was very young. And that's why he was my first attachment. My first love was my dad. And then after he left, he left and eventually went to the States, and he lived in the States for a long time. I didn't see him until I was 21. But over the years, I mean, I only saw him a handful of times. But over the years, I got very close to my mum. But my first attachment was to my dad.
You said something that I haven't really heard. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say this before. Your first love was your dad. Most times we hear from children that their first love is their mom because the mom's the nurture, right? You spend 9 months in your mom's womb, you come out and your mom's doing most of the work, the breastfeeding, bottle feeding, sometimes the school pickups and all these other things, right? So it's interesting that you said your dad was your first love. And I really want to ask, why did you say your dad was your first love? Was your relationship with your mom and dad just different? And
You know what, I can't even tell you what my relationship with my mum was like at that time. Wasn't I don't think I'd ever have a bad relationship with my mum. My mum she was a great person. But
Mhm.
I think my mum had obviously I had three other brothers, and I think that for whatever reason, and you know what, there's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things. I think my dad must have maybe just decided to take me. When I say take me, to spend more time with me. That's what I suspect. I also
Yeah.
suspect that my parents are Jamaican, and as with a lot of people of color, there's still this kind of light skin, dark skin thing, colorism and things like that. My dad was dark skinned and my mum was very light. My mum was very fair skinned. And I think that there was still this thing, maybe from my dad, maybe from both of them. which goes back to colonialism and slavery and those sorts of things. I'm sure I'm telling you things you already know, but this whole thing about light skin, dark skin, and how we we prefer one shade better than the other, I think was going on in my family as a young person. And at the time, when I was very young, I was darker than I am now. I grew in terms of shade. I grew fair as I grew up. But as a young child, I was darker. I was more like my dad in complexion. And I don't know if it was that was him. My brothers were fairer. I was the darkest one out of a lot of them. And I don't know if it's that, but I'm sure somewhere along the line that was a part of it. But anyhow, he was in my world, he was very important when I was a very young child, and my attachment was to him. He was the person I got attached to. So I suspect that he was the person that was it gave me a lot of attention. But also, you see, my mum was charming in her way, but my dad had this charisma. My dad could walk into a room and he'd light it up. Even though I only
Yeah.
knew him a little bit, he just had that ability. He could
Right.
light up a room for just say a few things. He'd just walk in and you'd want to be with him, sort of thing. So maybe that's another part of it. That's I just wanted to maybe I drifted towards him for that reason. So yeah, but he definitely was my first love. If he wasn't my first love, then I wouldn't have been as destroyed as I was. I wouldn't have been as traumatized as I was because my brothers weren't. I was. And I know there's difference
You
between us.
know,
I was more sensitive in some ways, but that doesn't account for all of it. That doesn't account for all of it.
mhm, you touched a number of topics in a short amount of time. And I do find that when parents have more than one child, every child's affected differently in the household based on whatever happens in the household. Trauma may affect me more than it may affect you because of the way that you've learned to deal with things in life. And maybe you just never recognized it, so it didn't affect you. And it happens in many households where maybe, mom yelled at us both the same, but only I was affected. My brother's like, what are you talking about? Mom did not abuse us verbally. Yes,
Yeah,
she did. But just we were able, our coping mechanisms and the things that we're able to block out, like trauma, like, you could do trauma block, right? So you
yeah,
don't notice it.
yeah,
And you touched on being Jamaican. I'm also Jamaican. So I know what it feels like to be raised in a Jamaican
yeah,
household. And it's a very unique type of raising and very special as well, being raised in a West Indian household, not just Jamaican, but also the colorism part of it. And that's a whole other conversation. But in Jamaican household, there is a colorism thing. And sometimes people are blind to it because they don't notice that they're doing it. And the things
yeah,
that they say out of their mouths, it's like they're not even paying attention or aware of what did you just say. You said it, but in your mind, the way that you thought it was said and it should be received wasn't the way that it was received.
yeah,
So I have that too in my family and also my partner's family where, my kids are a little bit lighter
mm,
than their cousins, and you see the favoritism. You see
yeah,
the way that the grandparents love on the children differently
yeah,
and in the presence of the other kids, and that is traumatic. So that colorism
definitely.
thing, it's a big thing within our culture and community, and we've learned to navigate through it, but still we're breaking that generational cycle. And
We
that's a
have to
whole
break
other
it.
topic.
Yeah, it
That's
is. It is.
we,
But
we
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 have
we
to break
definitely
it.
have to break it because
Mm,
and all it's doing is dividing each other.
yeah, yeah,
Because when the world looks at us, it doesn't matter if I'm lighter than you or you're mixed with something, half
yeah,
Jamaican, half white,
mm,
half Filipino, whatever the case may be. The world only sees one color.
yeah,
The treatment may be different, yes, but we're still grouped in that box
yeah,
as a black
yeah,
person. There's
Yeah.
no box that says lighter skinned black person, yellow tone black person, albino black person. There is no box for that.
Yeah.
And we really have to break that generational cycle that continues to be passed down and just dividing each other. We divide each other by our own skin color. We're already being divided in the world by other races. So we got to stop doing that to each other. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
We have to stop doing it to each other, and obviously it's a battle that we're going to have to continue with. When I look at society, I look at people. Even if we're looking at basically white people, they're well, not just white, anyone, anyone. Because when we look at black people,
Anyone.
that's one of the things that I think impacts us. But if we look at people generally, there's, in my eyes, because of my experiences, I see it as we have a lack of awareness of how, why does certain things go on? Why do sexual abuse continue? Why is there children being killed by their own parents? Why is that continuing? Why are lots of things going? Why is domestic abuse continuing? All those things, and it's because there's a lack of awareness, and we don't know how our responses impact on people. We just do it. We're doing it unconsciously. We're unconscious about so many things, and we need to wake up, about a lot of things.
Yeah. And I was on a TikTok listening to a live yesterday, and they were talking about this very same topic, saying it stops when we start speaking up. It stops when we hold each other accountable. It stops when we let them know that it's not okay. As much as it's uncomfortable to call people out on things, it is necessary. That's how we stop it.
Yeah.
That is exactly how we stop it. And I know that you mentioned that your father wasn't raised with his father growing up. His father wasn't present either in his life. And that's another generational cycle that seemed to
Yeah.
have been passed down from your father. And he continued that. How did that pattern shape who you are, who you became as a man, a father, and a professional?
I think there are things that I miss a lot. There are things that I miss from not having a dad. I'm not. For example, my older brother was like my dad for a long time. In my eyes, I looked up to my older brother. I didn't have a dad. I didn't have someone to look up to in that way. So in one way, I think I missed a lot. In other ways, I think I learned a lot. And I think that my mum, being the person that she was, meant that I was, well, not just me. I think my other brothers, we all were people who, we had good qualities, and we didn't allow lots of things that could easily put most people, if you're not careful, down the road of, fighting with others and getting into prison and getting into trouble with the police and things like that, which easily could have happened.
Mhm.
Because it's so easy to do. It's so easy, especially when you're black in, the UK or something like that, or maybe in the States or even Canada, I don't know. But it's very easy to do because people would come as a child. People came and picked on me. And if I couldn't fight back,
Mhm.
I would have been a victim. Fortunately, I could fight back. Fortunately,
Mhm.
I was reasonably strong for my age. But it's easy, it could have been easy. And if I can imagine there are people out there who are picked on and they don't fight back straight away, but eventually they turn. They're not gonna be the victim forever, and it's easy to put you going down a path. You go down that path, and then when the police stop you and the police might harass you or whatever, then it's very easy to get to a point where you rebel against all of that. And I recognize that with a lot of specifically black or people of young male people of color. That's easy. It's easy for that to happen. Very easy. And the authorities don't really look at it. They're not really interested in it. They just, are people following the rule of law. That's all their business with. But I can see how that so easily affects people of color. And I think
Mm.
I was fortunate to have a mum, partly to do with her Christianity as well, her religious views. That I grew up in church. That I was able to go down a different path. but I could have easily gone down that path. And I suspect if I'd grown up with my dad, I would have gone down that path.
Yeah, it's very easy. And we see it a lot now. And how important for the men and women listening that have children, and whether they're battling, getting the father to be more present and active in the light in their child's life. Can you just explain how important it is, especially as a colored child, not having the presence of a father in a home?
It's it's
What would
it's
you say to them, the importance of that?
I would say, and there's a lot of debate about this going on all the time. I would say it's very important to have your father, at least to know who your father is and see your father. If they're split up and the children aren't with the father, okay, but it's important to see your dad. As long as your dad is not totally abusive or anything like that, then you know it's right and it's proper and it's in the child's best interest to have contact and have a relationship with their dad, know who their dad is. It's so important. And I think lots of people without having a dad. I mean, if you've got a good dad, you've got it's really helpful to you. A good dad who cares about what's going on with you is a good role model. It means so much to you in your world. I had a good mum, and that was great. And I would never say that it wasn't positive. It was very positive having the mum I had. But had I had a good dad as well, I think that would have been wonderful. That would have meant so much. So having
So much
a
difference.
dad who cares, who's around you, he doesn't have to live with you all the time. If they split up or whatever, but it's significant to have good contact, good relationship, to build a worthwhile relationship with your parents, whoever they are. I saw my dad probably less than 5 times, maybe 3 or 4 times in my whole life that I remember now, that I consciously remember. And I knew that it was so important. The first time I saw him, I wanted to ask him questions because I didn't want him to go to his grave and me to be thinking all my life, what was this about? Why wasn't he there? What was, ask questions that you can't get answers to because he's no longer there. I don't want that. I didn't want to
Hmm.
have not to be able to ask the questions that I think. And in what I realized from doing a lot of work with children and with parents is so many times parents who are adults now, when you ask them about their childhood, they don't know what happened and they don't ask. And they're not grown up to learn to ask. And it's just like this
Right.
vacuum that they just don't know what happened. So I
Hmm.
knew for years when I was growing up, well into my adult life, there was something missing. And what was missing for a long time was the fact that I was traumatized because my dad had left me, and I couldn't put it together and I didn't put it together properly until my mum died. My dad died 5 years to the actual day before my mum died. And when my mum died, I remember speaking to a friend of mine who was a counsellor. We were just talking about something, and bang, it's like a light bulb went in my head. I realised I'd been traumatised, and I realised all the things that I'd stopped, I hadn't thought about, but I also realised all the things that I'd been thinking about that were impacting on me for over many years was all to do the bits where I realised there was things that were missing in my life that I had a vacuum somewhere. It was all to do with that. It was all to do with the fact that
Hmm.
I blocked out this part of my life, and I could have lived my whole life not knowing what I blocked out, or that I blocked something out, something important, something significant of my childhood, and a significant part of my childhood I'd blocked out. When I realised that, and when that happened, when my mum died, and I remember that, it was just like, something had opened up in my world, because before then it was a blank. I couldn't put my fingers on it, and I didn't know why I did certain things. Sometimes I just didn't know why I behaved stupidly and did some stupid things that,
Yeah.
when I look back, I
Yeah.
think, "What the hell? Why did I do that?" But it was all part of it. It was all part of that thing that you can do things and people don't know, because you don't know. You don't even always know what you're doing. Yeah, and you do things and you look back and think, "Why the hell did I do that? That's stupid." But when I really look at it and figure
Yeah.
it out, I can lay some of it back, a significant part of it back, to what I was like as a child and what happened to me, because I didn't feel loved. No, that's not right. It's not that I didn't feel loved. I recognised that my mum loved
There's a
me,
piece of,
but as a young, sorry,
yeah. It's not that you didn't feel loved. It was like another part of love that was missing. So I understand what you're
something
saying,
was
that
missing, and
it's not
what
like you
was,
didn't get love from your mom. Something was just missing.
yeah, yeah, and what it was is simply that it was the love for my dad that was missing. I'd loved him at a time when I was very young, and I couldn't understand. In my mind, there's a part of me that said to myself, "I must not be lovable. I can't be lovable because my
Hmm.
dad left me, or my dad."
Hmm.
I didn't even expect this.
It's okay. It's okay.
I didn't,
It's okay.
I didn't even.
It's okay.
I didn't
I'm
even expect
actually,
this. But
I know.
but
Take a minute.
there's
It's
clearly
okay.
a part of me that r- felt about myself that I wasn't lovable, and that impacted a lot of my life.
Yeah.
For a long time, for a very long time. And then there's things you do. There are things you do that you look back on and wish you hadn't done, because you're not thinking about it at the time. But later on in life, you look back and you realise that maybe you hurt people and you didn't mean to hurt people, and you were dealing with your own hurt, or trying to. And that's what it's about. That's what happens. You just don't realise. And obviously, my dad didn't. I mean, even my mum was a great mum, but she didn't realise what had happened to me. She didn't realise what had happened to me.
Yeah.
She just. I'm sorry. I'm making you. I'm making you
No,
emotional as
you
well.
know, I just want to, you know, we don't realize sometimes when we talk about our experiences and we look back and we're expressing ourselves, how much there's still something there.
Mm,
When you look back and you think about it, and you're like, for that period of my life, I didn't feel loved and nobody noticed. And I believe it's happening a lot right now. And I don't mean to exclude any race or any other diaspora, but especially in the Black community,
mm,
I believe that moms try so hard. especially when there's not a father around, to love their child and do everything and block that out too, because mothers experience trauma as well
Yeah.
when the father leaves. Because most women are expecting that we're going to raise this child together. We're going to do things together. We're going to bring them up in the world the best way that we can, right? And there's so much times where us as parents, we don't see that our children are going through something and we think it's nothing. Okay, dad's gone, so what? I'm here. I'll do everything. But because parents are doing so much, because mothers are doing so much, they can't see that their child's hurting. They just know that
Yeah.
they're providing food, shelter,
Yeah.
clothing, the basic necessities of school, and trying to be there for all the other kids in the house. That they don't see that there's one that's hurting and acting out because of the absence of their father.
Yeah.
And what you just said really resonated with me. And I'm glad that you allowed yourself to feel, because this is what it is. We have to allow ourselves to feel and give ourselves permission to feel our emotions, go through the processes, because it hurts.
Mm.
And we don't understand that trauma is not just physical. Trauma is not sexual. It's not abuse only. It's the absence of somebody in our life, somebody just leaving, somebody saying something,
Yeah.
and you acknowledge that.
Well,
And I really want you to just take a second and allow yourself to feel those emotions. Don't I'm I
no,
am happy that you're
Janelle,
finding some type of
Janelle, I'm going to explain something to you. I'm not like, well, I always say, and whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know, but I'm not
Mhm,
like a lot of men. Only in the extent to the extent that I don't care if I show my emotion. I used to. I used
mhm.
to hide it. I used to hide it. But after my mum died, I realized I can't. When it starts coming, I can't stop it. I can't hold it anymore. I literally can't. It's
Yeah,
not something I can hold anymore. I used to be able to. I can't anymore. So,
yeah, yeah,
and I don't, think it's not a weakness. It's a strength. What a lot of people might think is a weakness. That's their problem. I recognize it as a strength, but
mhm.
I still don't like to cry in front of other people. It's not something I like, but
Yeah,
it's something
yeah,
that if it happens, it happens. I just have to deal with it. Um, but a lot of men don't. We've got to move. We've got to understand. We've got to understand we're human, and we've got to understand that everything that happens has an impact on us. And sometimes there are things that have such a powerful impact on us that it, it makes us upset. It affects us when we think we're over it. We think we dealt with it, and we haven't,
yeah.
and we may never fully deal with it.
You're right.
But we
You're
need
right.
to address. So, no, I just don't like. I like to be in control of myself, but sometimes this doesn't happen. And actually, a lot of that is my dad's. I recognise it's my dad's fault. When I say it's my dad's fault, it's probably not the way it comes. What I mean by that is that my dad, despite all his some of the ways he had that ability, that charisma, but he also, whenever he left, when I was leaving, he was always cry. He would always
Yeah,
cry, and I realised I got
yeah,
that from him. I've got it. Even my daughters have that from me. They cry. It's
emotional. Hmm.
it's just what it is. I can't help it. And there's no point in me trying to help it. It's just who I am. So
Hmm.
I've given up trying to pretend otherwise. If I could feel it and I can move away from people at the time, I will move away because I don't want to embarrass them or embarrass me. But I no longer think to myself, if someone's upset, they're upset whether they're crying or, sometimes people are crying without tears. They are breaking down in front of you and you can see it if you're open
Hmm.
to that. and you have to give them permission to break down in front of you, and it's all right, because sometimes in life,
It's
life's
all
tough,
right.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. Life is tough. And you mentioned something. You said a lot of men, masculinity is defined as being strong and not allowing yourself to break down, cry,
Yeah, it's
feel
rubbish.
emotions. How
Mm,
would you describe that being a boy? And you know what, you just described it perfectly, is that your father allowed you to see that, so he's demonstrated to you already that it's okay for men to cry, it's okay for them to feel. But what does that mean to you, and what would you say to other men who, we see it a lot, and we tend to, I said to somebody yesterday, a friend, I said, we tend to forget men. As women, we forget that they have emotions too sometimes. Because naturally, when men come into this world, they're already taught to be strong. They're already taught to be the breadwinner of the family, right?
mm,
So for most men that are going through things in their life, they are taught to wear a mask. They are
mm,
taught to mask it. They're taught to just move on and keep working through it and not let anybody see that vulnerable side of them. And sometimes when they reach a point where they can't hold it in anymore, it turns out as aggression and anger. But
mm.
truly, all they need is maybe a hug and somebody to give them permission to cry.
Yeah,
So, what would
yeah,
you say to especially Black men that are facing so much in the world, and it's not just family issues and work and their internal selves and their own, troubles and trials, but also the world, the things that they have to face when they step outside? What would you say to them that may be going through something and they just don't know how to deal with it?
two things, and this is to black men and black women as well, and maybe and not just black men and black women. It's wider than that, much wider than that. We have to redefine what it means to be strong. I think we have to really redefine it because it's wrong, and it
Mhm.
punishes us. We're being punished for adopting a kind of, this stoic, I can handle it, but it's not right. It's not. It doesn't help us. It's not benefiting us. For black men who find, for people of color, men of color who find themselves in that position, we have to learn to reach out to people. We have to learn to be vulnerable before we break. And a lot of times, what happens is that we don't see ourselves as we see ourselves as being strong, whatever, and strong means we don't talk to anybody about it. We don't show or share our vulnerability, and that never helps us. That basically works against us, really, because what we need to be doing. There's some things that men can take from women, and I think we need to find the people. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's a few people who we can share those important experiences with, because otherwise you are on your own, and that's why you see lots of, I think, sometimes people committing suicide, and people who love them thinking, well, if only they'd have told us, if only they'd have shared it. We need to recognise that happens often, and with black men, we face so much we go on, as black women do as well, and so
Yeah.
it's just something where we need to find our support system and access that support system.
Yes. And I would add to that and say, women, whether you are of color or not, but we need to not forget that our men have feelings and emotions, and we have to create that space for them. And I agree with you, Michael, that we have to find our support system, and we have to give them that support system as well, because sometimes they are crying out for help and we're just not listening, and we have to be attentive and realize when there's something going on with them and be that
Yeah,
outlet.
yeah, definitely.
You, despite not having a father, growing up with a father, had a father, but just not growing up with him and getting to be active in life with him, you became an advocate, an author, and a social worker. You specialize in preparing people to give evidence under cross examination. Why is that skill so crucial? And why do many people feel unprepared for it?
Many people feel unprepared for it because they don't know. They, they go to court very rarely. They go to court once in a blue moon or once in a lifetime. And so what people are used to doing is, oh, if I have to go to court, well, I'll just get a solicitor, I'll get a lawyer. But solicitors and lawyers cannot help you when you're in the witness box. You are on your own. So
Mhm.
99, as I said, 99.9% of the population don't know how to deal with this, don't know how to navigate giving evidence and being cross-examined. They don't know how to deal with that. It's also a highly daunting experience in any event. So it's meant to be stressful. They call it a stress test. You are giving evidence under stressful circumstances. One of the most stressful circumstances. So people don't know how to deal with it, and they're not taught to know how to deal with it. And you're up against. It's like I always see it like imagine me, who's not an athlete, running up against Usain Bolt. Have I got a chance of winning? I don't think so. So
No.
and it's the same it's just a very similar thing with barristers. Barristers train in this regularly. They're training daily for this. What are we doing? What are witnesses doing? We're going
Right.
into court somehow expecting to get through it and get what we want, and we're not training. We're not preparing properly for it because we don't even know. We don't even know what we're going to. When I went to court, I was a social worker at the time. I was not even someone who's like a layperson. I was a social worker. All right, I was very young and inexperienced social worker. But I went into court not knowing what was going on, what was going to happen. I was like an animal to the slaughter. That's what it's like. And legal people, they know what it's like. They know exactly what you're up against. I remember I was as a children's guardian, which is someone who is a kind of an expert in court proceedings. And I was working with a solicitor, and they said to me, they were they asked me a few things before I was cross-examined. So they asked me to, when I was in the witness box, just say a few things about what my assessment is, what my argument is. I can't remember what it's called now. It's examination in chief. Yeah, examination in chief. And then after that, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Then I'm going to leave you to the wolves. And I knew exactly what he meant, and he knew exactly what he meant. He meant he's going to leave me to barristers who will be attacking me as if I'm a piece of meat.
You shared that you had your own personal experience with being on the stand and giving evidence. Do you mind sharing a little bit of that with us?
No, I don't. It's my first experience, which was a baptism of fire. I had been working with a little girl, a 3-year-old little girl, and her parents. And I very soon realized that I didn't like to see the family. It wasn't that I didn't want to see this little girl, but it was that I didn't want to see the parents because the parents hated me, or they showed me that they disliked me strongly.
Mhm.
And I was young at the time and I was inexperienced, and I wanted to be liked. That was one of my weaknesses at the time. And they didn't like me. So it made it a very uncomfortable experience. Anyhow, I had to go and see the little girl, but each time I went to see her, she was always in her playpen. She was always looked a bit grubby, looked like she needed a lot of care and attention. The parents wouldn't talk to me. It was very uncomfortable. Anyhow, one day, yeah, she used, and this little girl always used to look at me. The thing that used to hit me most about her was she always used to look at me. She wasn't looking at her mum, she wasn't looking at her dad, she wasn't looking at anyone around the flat. She was just looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't make out. I knew that that felt strange, but I couldn't. I just couldn't understand exactly what was going on. One day, it was just an ordinary day, weekday morning. I was travelling into work. It was ordinary day, except I was later than usual because there had been some roadworks, and I was a little bit worried that my manager was going to have a go at me because I was going to be late, and we didn't always see fully eye to eye, my manager and myself at that time. So when I got into work, I was pleased to see that her door was shut. So I thought, oh, that's great. So I went to my my desk and I started working. And about half an hour later, her door opened and she looked out into the office. 10 minutes after that, she called me in. I thought, oh God, she's going to have a go at me now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got inside her office, she was just sitting there, staring out of the window, like something outside was calling her attention. So we sat in silence for several seconds. Or eventually, she said to me, "You're lucky. Your career's just beginning. Mine is at an end. You'll get over this, but I never will."
Mm-hmm.
Then she mentioned the little girl's name and told me that she'd been brutally murdered that morning. And what that meant for me, amongst other things, was that I was going to have to give an account for the work that I'd done and the work that I hadn't done. And chief amongst the people I'd have to give this account to was the courts. Now, I'd never been to court at the time. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew enough from the way people around me were behaving that it wasn't pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly wasn't going to be a walk in the park.
Right.
What I also remember in that period of time, in the days and weeks leading up to going to court, was that there was this big, dark, heavy cloud hanging over my head, and that dark, heavy cloud was court, represented court. Something I wanted to get away from, something I wanted to disappear from and never have to be involved with. But I knew I couldn't get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that was going to happen, whether I wanted it to or not. As I said, I went to court. It was a famous court in London. It's called the Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand. And if you picture a big stone cathedral, it looks like that from the outside. But when you get in there, the first thing that hit me was just how cold it was. Freezing in there, freezing cold, because it's a big stone building. But it's not just cold in terms of the temperature, it's cold in terms of the atmosphere, because courts aren't pleasant places to go to.
No.
They're toxic places.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I found my way into this court, and when I got there, I was placed in this witness box. I'd never been placed in a witness box before. I didn't know what to expect. But I felt trapped. I couldn't get away, and I wanted to. When I was in this box, I wanted to get away from. I didn't want to be in. There were these barristers asking me horrible, horrible questions. These barristers were making out that the death of this child was all my fault.
Wow.
You know, if I'd have done this, if I'd have done that, she'd still been alive. It was my responsibility. Blah 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 blah. So at a time when I was at my lowest ebb, when I'm feeling traumatized, when I'm feeling guilty, when I'm feeling experiencing loss, at a time when I'm not prepared emotionally, psychologically, or professionally for answering questions. That's the time where I'm being asked these horrible, horrible questions. And these questions were coming in thick and fast. In fact, they were like darts being thrown across the room at me. And I was like this massive dartboard that they couldn't fail but hit. And I didn't know how to deflect these questions. I didn't know how to deal with them. So they're hitting me all over the place. Were they hitting me physically? No. Were they hurting me physically? No. But psychologically and emotionally, I was in the intense pain. I was in so much pain that I was in denial. I thought I was in some kind of nightmare. And I wanted to kick myself. Come on, wake up, because this is too painful.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't waking up and the pain was continuing. And at one stage, I was in so much pain that I looked around the room. I said, there's got to be someone here who cares. There's got to be someone here who's got a heart. Someone here must care. But as I looked around the room, I didn't see anyone who cared. I didn't see anyone with a heart. All I saw was cold, hard stares and glares looking back at me. And I realised at that moment that no one was coming to help me. I was on my own. I was going to have to deal with this by myself. And as I realised that, as that realisation hit me, I thought of this little girl because she'd been on her own. And what also hit me at that time was that she'd been on her own, hoping, wishing, begging, pleading that someone was going to come and save her. And you know what I also realised at that point? That the person she was hoping was going to come and save her was none other than me. That's why she wasn't looking at her mum. That's why she wasn't looking at her dad. That's why she wasn't looking at anywhere else around the flat. She was looking at me because I was a one hope of being saved. Only I couldn't understand what her silent face and her body language were trying to convey to me. I wasn't skilled enough. I wasn't experienced enough. I wasn't well enough attuned to her needs. And so I wasn't able to save her. And that will stay with me for the rest of my days. Now, there were some things that were similar to what was going on for me from what was going on for her. We were both trapped in our respective prisons. Her in her playpen, me in the witness box. Both hoping, begging, pleading, wishing that someone was going to come and save us. But we were wishing and begging and hoping in vain because no one was coming to save us. No one was coming to save her because I was the only person who potentially could have saved her and I couldn't save her at the time. And no one was coming to save me because I'm in the witness box. I meant to be on my own, I just didn't realise it at the time. But that is where the similarity ends, or ended. Because what this little girl was exposed to was a million times worse than what I went through. I can only begin to imagine the depths of horror this poor child experienced on a daily basis. But what I can tell you, without a word of a lie, that what I experienced in that witness box, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy ever. I don't know how long it went on for. It could have been an hour, could have been 2 hours, could have been longer. All I can tell you is that when you're in absolute agony, 5 minutes feels like a lifetime. Eventually the judge glared at me and just dismissed me. And when that happened, I wanted to flee from court. I never wanted to see the inside of a court ever again. I was done with social work. I didn't want anything to do with any of it. And that's what I planned to do. But that's when something stopped me. Something deep inside stopped me and said, no, Michael, that's not what you're going to do. You are going to go back to court. You're going to go back to court again and again and again. You are going to immerse yourself in court. And do you know why you're going to do it? You're going to do it because what happened to you today, you are never going to allow to happen to you ever, ever, ever again. And that's what I did. I went back to court again and again and again until I got good at giving evidence, until I got damn good at giving evidence, until I was able to write a book about giving evidence. I couldn't save this little girl. It was too late. But I could save an awful lot of other people from going through the things that I went through and worse. Because my attitude had changed. I was no longer wanting to be saved. I was able to save myself. And in the process, I could save an awful lot of other people. So my experience at court was a baptism of fire. It was, in all honesty, still to this day, one of the worst experiences I will ever, ever have. But having said that, if it hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be the person I am today. So in some ways, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. But it took me 30 plus years to figure that one out. So yeah, that's what happened. That was my core experience, and I had to go back many times because I wanted to make sure that nothing happened to me again. I wasn't going to allow it.